news this week, there were two articles from the Roanoke Times, and Roanoke, Virginia, is about an hour, I believe, an hour and a half south of Blacksburg. Excuse me, I believe 45 minutes to an hour outside of Blacksburg, and so they are covering Dan and Block One because Block One is based in Blacksburg, and because Dan is an interesting story. So the two articles, the first one was about Dan's journey, kind of coming up through how he got interested in blockchain, his prior experience as a software engineer. They also go a bit into his history about when he sort of relearned everything he knew, I guess as they put it in the article, where he sort of stepped back and he realized that he would like to sort of reinvent himself and rethink the way that he actually approaches the world. And so he sort of went through a deep dive of libertarianism and a bunch of other topics. And then he got involved in blockchain and talks all about his 2001 Nissan Altima and his struggles. And then, which, that stuff is interesting. Everybody wants to learn about someone that's successful as Dan. And then now, of course, has a wonderful company, a large company in Blacksburg, Virginia, and they're producing phenomenal software that will probably, hopefully, change the world. So that article was very interesting. What are your thoughts there, Blue Jays?
This article is kind of a almost like a personal profile of him, and it's just wonderful to see it done from a neutral perspective. I know Dan gets a lot of press for jumping projects and also different other negative things, and I think this is a really positive article with him being profiled as just a normal guy who's just happens to be really smart and really good at writing these types of software. So
that's a great point, and it's an interesting look from someone from the mainstream media, as we like to call them, but they're just regular folks who are not into this space, right? And they're trying to learn more about someone who is so involved in this space, and that's why the article is very interesting. There is no such thing as negativity. There are no ulterior motives from other projects, things of that nature. So if you are interested in Dan's story and you would like just an independent, neutral take, then you should certainly check it out. We will link that in the chat. And then the other article from the same newspaper, the Roanoke Times, they also had sort of a "What is blockchain" by Dan Larimer, I guess you could say. And so he sort of describes in very basic terms why blockchain is valuable. They go through, they do a practice where they talk about an Amazon transaction as if someone were to buy a blanket off of Amazon for $16.99, right? And then how Wells Fargo has to be the trusted intermediary that actually processes that transaction. Wells Fargo holds the ledger of all the bank account balances. They know that you have, say it's $1,000 in that bank account. And so they take out $16.99 off your $1,000, and then they credit it over to Amazon's bank account. And that's how it's done currently. Well, with blockchain, they basically describes for folks who are not used to blockchain that you do not need that centralized figure holding your money for you or holding the ledger for you. So therefore, you own all of your own value. The process can be much cheaper because you're not paying all those bankers and the large buildings and everything else. There's no business model surrounding your money. It's just you own your money on this independent ledger that is verified by all kinds of different independent parties, strangers, if you will. And that's so. If you are looking to learn more about blockchain, or you're trying to describe it to someone who needs to get more involved, you should definitely show them this article. It does break it down in very simple terms. I was impressed.
Yeah, there was I like to follow Dan on Telegram, and there's that bot that basically anytime he posts, you can see what he's posted, and one of the things that he talked about was basically the world needs more EOS. The world needs EOS as if it needs more faster databases. And being in IT, we do need fast databases, and it's one of those things like, yeah, we need that. So at the end of the day, a blockchain is an immutable database, and it's something that you can't, like Thomas alluded to earlier, you just can't erase things. It's there, and it's transparent, and I guess this is something like what this article is trying to explain to the regular non-techies.
Right, and when Dan talks about in Telegram, when he talks about EOS transactions and quality of transactions and also the speed, so we're referring to old blockchains. So having a blockchain, having an independent ledger that's verified by people all around the world, there's a lot of latency involved. It's very hard. It's expensive because you have all these people that need to be compensated And that's what Bitcoin basically is right now. You have people competing with their large computers to try and win Bitcoins every 10 minutes to win the block.
Yeah.
And that's what's different about EOS. And that's what Dan Larimer has invented. He has a system where instead the block producers are like representatives. They're voted in, and therefore they're incentivized to try and earn their right to produce those blocks.
That's right.
So therefore they are helping the network. They're putting money back into the network. They want to maintain those votes. It's like a political party, basically.
And they have community benefit projects and community engagement projects.
Yeah, exactly. And everything can be seen on blockchain. So if they were to try and steal some of the money or do something that would not help the network, anybody can verify it and see what is going on and therefore spread the alarm. And then that block producer can be voted out. As Thomas talked about with Bitcoin, it's like the Wild West. Because they're just competing with the strongest computers, it really turns out to be the richest people win with the most computers. And therefore, it's not really that decentralized because you have these very powerful groups that own a large part of the Bitcoin.
That's right. And they can produce electricity at a cheaper cost, really.
Sure, exactly. And we'll move on to Brock Pierce. Unfortunately, Brock Pierce was let go from Block One in his advisory role. He had kind of stepped back. Ian Grigg was talking about in Telegram how Brock Pierce has become so involved in his Puerto Rico project. He's helping set up. Puerto Rico is a great destination for blockchain companies right now. They have sort of reinvented themselves in the wake of their hurricane, and they're trying to attract technology companies and in a promising field. And so they are inviting blockchain companies by offering very low taxes, I believe even no taxes in some cases, when it comes to cryptocurrency, when it comes to trading, things of that nature. So Brock is down there. They are trying to build, I believe it's a city almost. And they're also starting businesses and trying to operate out of there. So he's been very busy. Now, this news came out, I believe, Wednesday. So it is fairly old news at this point. Unfortunately, it just, I guess from a standpoint of Block One, looking to be a business-to-business type blockchain, right? They want EOS to be a blockchain that Silicon Valley can say, wow, I'd like to be involved with this, right? It's a professional, serious blockchain. They have the technology that can run large-scale applications, and these applications can be indistinguishable from centralized alternatives. Therefore, you can easily compete. You can garner the attention of regular folks who are maybe don't care about blockchain. They just want to have a website that works really well. Yeah. So Block One is serious about their goals. And unfortunately, because of the negative situation surrounding Brock and the way he presents himself, they had to let him go in order to sort of advance the company. It sounds like everything worked out well, and there are no hard feelings or anything of that nature. It's just part of the deal. And Brock is already busy with his next project anyway, so no concerns, right?
No concerns. I think it was best for both parties. And that's just the way the cookie crumbles.
Yep, I agree with you there. And let's go on to the Google ad ban, and as well as Twitter. Joining Facebook in banning cryptocurrency ads. There's a good reason for this. It's because of all the ICOs. And an ICO, for those who are not familiar, is basically anyone can put up this website and say, we are building a great blockchain. You can send us your money and we will build this blockchain for you. It's all built on promises and hype and hope. Unfortunately, the nature of blockchain has been taken and sort of distorted. And because people can offer money in a decentralized way over the internet very easily, frictionless, it has become very popular. And people who are investing money in these so-called projects that will hopefully come to fruition, these people are hoping they can make money off their money. And that's why they throw all kinds of money at these so-called projects that may or may not actually turn out. So what happens is you have a lot of scams, right? And that's what's been going on is these companies have been purposely putting up fake websites and taking lots of money from people. And there has been no regulation surrounding it because this is a very new industry, and governments are not quite sure how to deal with a decentralized currency that cannot really be regulated that easily in jurisdictions. So what are your thoughts, Blue Jays?
Yeah, I think I personally think that this is like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. But I do agree with you. There is some consumer protection that needs to go on here, and it's probably for the best at this time. However, this is probably not something long term that would make any sense. There's going to be a lot of legitimization to this industry once things are not all scammy. Right. And right. Not everything is going to be that way. And at the beginning of the internet, it had the same type of perception. Right. when the internet was being launched, it had that negative perception, and eventually we're here. And Google and Facebook and Twitter were born from that revolution.
Right.
So I think it's a short term move.
I agree. For those who aren't familiar, the Google, Facebook, and Twitter have banned ads from any cryptocurrency because there are so many scams that were advertising through those mediums in order to gain more folks who would throw money at it. Right. I actually have a personal story about this. I had a coworker, and she was talking about how she was thinking about buying Bitcoin, she told me, because she had seen an ad on Facebook.
Okay.
And she said, yeah, there's guaranteed returns. You put your money in and it's guaranteed returns. I was thinking, that's not Bitcoin. That doesn't sound right. She was actually talking about BitConnect.
Yeah.
This was a few months ago. And I thought to myself, this is bad news. I mean, this is not right, because as we know, BitConnect was actually a Ponzi scheme. It was a pyramid scheme, which is just a fine example of the scams that need to be taken out and eliminated. So this is, in my mind, it's a great move.
Yeah, and I'll refer you guys back to that funny meme it's on our forums now. You can look at that, and then there's Warren Buffett at the end. His advice was buy BitConnect.
Right, which is obviously it's a fake meme, and It was just subtitles that were interposed. Basically, for those who didn't see last week's show or see the GIF, Warren Buffett is doing this interview with Charlie Rose with CBS, but the sound is turned off, and so there's these fake subtitles underneath about him talking about buying all these scam coins and how he's lost billions of dollars. But he's like smiling because he's actually doing a different interview. He's having a good time, just like a lot of cryptocurrency people can be. So it's a funny GIF.
Yeah, don't buy BitConnect. That's not my personal recommendation at all. Does it even exist anymore?
I don't know. I haven't kept up with BitConnect personally, so I'm not sure, but. Let's move on to the G20. G20 says crypto is not a threat to the global economy at this time. A lot of folks are taking this as great news. I take it more as crypto is not developed enough, right? They don't have any actual use cases. EOS is going to be the first one. Of course, that's why we're here. We believe in it. And because it's fast enough and it has all the necessary features for people to actually adopt it and like it and use it. Current cryptocurrencies are just used more as people hoard them in the hopes that the value will go up.
Yeah.
And therefore, they're just completely a speculative asset. They're not used as an actual currency. And therefore, I think it makes sense why the G20 would not care about cryptocurrency. It's really just a fad. It's like Beanie Babies at this point. Would the G20 care about Beanie Babies? No.
No, maybe Crypto Kitties. The FSB's initial assessment is that crypto assets do not pose risks to global financial stability at this time. So that's from the FSB, which is the Financial Stability Board, and that's the quote from that website. So that was made, I believe, by the governor of the Bank of England, Mark Carney. So that was an interesting quote, and at this time is a kind of interesting terminology there. It's good though. I mean, of all we've gone through in this space, it's good to know that these at least these FSB has that opinion.
Yeah, and what are your personal thoughts? Do you think crypto is beginning to be more widely adopted, or is it any further along than it really has been in the last couple of years?
I think there was a lot of hype there, and what we're beginning to see in the trends coming out, especially with EOS, is the move to utility type of tokens. This token is not merely just a currency, but it has some sort of value that's intrinsic in that token. And you look at the EOS token, it's going to have many different parts of value, right? We covered many of them on the Dan Q&A video, and he's illustrated how they are going to be given value: voting, storage, computation, RAM, right? Whatever else they decide to throw in there. So this is a utility token. It is not meant to have any values, just a currency. And
True.
I think that's where the industry should be going, in my opinion.
I think you explained it pretty well. That's exactly what's happened right now with cryptocurrencies. The value for Bitcoin or any of those other cryptocurrencies comes from adoption, which basically means that you need to have more people continually buying and hopefully using those cryptocurrencies. As we know, Bitcoin, for example, is not usable on a wide scale because it is way too slow It's old technology. It's like having a Model T car. You're not going to keep up on the highway, right? So they can't process enough transactions for people all around the world to use Bitcoin to buy things. Also, the transaction fees become very expensive when you have a lot of users trying to use the network at the same time, so that it becomes clogged. So a utility token, where when you own tokens, you actually own a part of the network. It's like owning a computer. It is a very simple explanation. If you say you own 1% of the total EOS network tokens on whatever blockchain that is launched with the EOS IO software, you may own as much of it as a Dell computer, for example, right? And then, because the network is growing and more application companies are building on top of the EOS blockchain, eventually the block producers will have more money to invest back into their hardware, and therefore the power of the network grows. So even though you have the same number of tokens, you may have more power that has been allocated to your tokens that has beaten out inflation.
Not to mention voting. I mean,
right.
Which is another awesome side benefit of owning. It gives you and we talked about this earlier with Mabode, engaged governance. You get to participate in that as well. You get to determine who is on your platform, right? So,
yeah, there are a lot of, and the use cases, we don't even know a lot of them at this point. It's impossible for us to even speculate on how the use cases will turn out, whether it's governance or whether this and that. So, of course, it's going to be very exciting and fun, and it'll be interesting for us to talk about this ongoing as more use cases come out, as more dApps start to develop on EOS, and as we learn about all these. So it's about to get a lot more exciting.
Kevin, you had that quote that they're handing us the keys to a rocket ship, and the more and more I think about it, it is a rocket ship, and it's we need to know how to drive it. They're not going to drive it, right?
Right. Yeah. And they've made that very clear, and it is up to the community. So we will need to be engaged voters and engaged token holders. Anyone who cares about seeing their token value go up should actually keep in touch or keep up with block producers, see that there's no type of corruption going on. If a dApp company looks into EOS and they see that there is corruption and that the block producers are all owned by one wealthy guy, whatever the case is, then they may not develop their dApps on EOS. They may choose a different blockchain platform, and then EOS does not gain the value that we think it will. So it is up to engaged voters. And of course, there are a lot of checks and balances in place. That's what we heard from Thomas about. He is the absolute master at developing that stuff, along with Dan. Like he always says, he likes to talk about Dan, how he goes, I thought I was smart, and then I met Dan, right? So talking to Dan is like talking to Everpedia, all the information of the world. But then also on top of that, you have like a philosopher, and he's also technically adept. I mean, it's just unbelievable talking to him. But let's move forward. Let's do our last news piece here, and then we'll go on to Meetups. So we're going to talk about the Wyoming. Wyoming has been very accepting of cryptocurrencies. Wyoming in the United States, it's one of our states. It's one of the smaller states population-wise. It's large geographically, but so they are interested in growing business in the state, and so they're passing a lot of laws to sort of invite, just like Puerto Rico in a way, they're looking to invite innovators and entrepreneurs and tech companies to start their business in Wyoming. And what are your thoughts? I know you've investigated this pretty thoroughly. What do you think of this?
So I've been following it. The title of the article is U.S. State of Wyoming defines cryptocurrency utility tokens as a new asset class. So going back, it is this concept of utility tokens, which definitely separates itself from being a currency only use case. And what is a utility token? Like we said before, it has to have that intrinsic value of a stake in a network, a part of a network from a resource perspective and also a voting perspective. So this is a bill that was passed that in Wyoming there exists a term and a sort of presence of having these utility tokens as a new asset class. It's signed into law. It's a Bill 70, and it's this utility token bill. And I think this is it's amazing, and it's also new to U.S. anyways. The state of Wyoming is the first elected body in the world to define a utility token as a new type of asset class, different from a security or commodity. which is a quote by Caitlin Long. And you can follow her on Twitter, and that's how I've been keeping up with this. Um, so that's Caitlin Long, Caitlin and Long. You can look her up. She's in tune with this, and that's how I've been keeping up on Twitter.
I believe she's an attorney in Wyoming, and she also gave an amazing talk. She went in front of the state legislature and described cryptocurrency in a phenomenal way that was easy to understand. She used the Google Docs reference where people are adding to a Google document and you can see it happening in real time. And she related that to how cryptocurrency is the same way. It's just that Google does not own it. A whole bunch of independent parties own that together. And you actually own it as well by contributing a little bit to it, or you can own it if you follow the rules or if you're putting in the work or if you deserve it, right? Monetary value is just based on what value you are providing to the world or to any situation. That's why Google is so valuable, because we all log into Google every day. We check our email on there and we search the internet, everything. So not sure where I was going with that point exactly, but she goes into great depth about how she gives good examples for folks who are new to cryptocurrency and blockchain to really understand why it makes sense. And I guess I would say that probably made a big difference in getting those bills passed in Wyoming.
That's right. There's also another quote here I wanted to read. This is also by Caitlin Long. It says, quote, "This could be very positive for the cryptocurrency community if Congress can break the tie and clarify everything. It's very exciting that Wyoming is the first state to define what a utility token is, setting an example of how this could become a standard under federal law. I do believe that the Wyoming approach will work under federal securities law, and am optimistic this SEC will agree." So, I mean, some progress here, right, Kevin? I don't know what the end result is, and I leave it up to the lawmakers and obviously the experts. But it's an interesting development.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to say thank you, Caitlin. We just posted her Twitter account link in the chat here. Hopefully it'll come up soon. And so she is doing a great job in Wyoming, and that state is setting the standard. I mean, who would have known? Anyone who's been to Wyoming just knows about beautiful mountains and wonderful open plains. They would never think cryptocurrency or blockchain, but I mean, kudos to Wyoming for setting the standard there and for leading the charge in this new technological revolution. So let's go to Meetups, EOS Meetups. We have a couple of them. We actually have a special intro as well from Sheldon, EOS Shenzhen. But first, let's go to Seattle. We have Blockgenic. And actually, we don't have a pre-recorded introduction from them, but in Seattle, they're going to hold an EOS meetup on March 29th, hosted by Blockgenic, and they are a block producer candidate. They have a meetup page now all set up, and so we will put that link up as well. Make sure if you're in Seattle or nearby, you go check that out. Also, we need to mention Hong Kong. We heard EOSphere talk about it earlier. They are going to that meetup in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
They're flying up there from Australia. That's really neat, and it's going to be a big one, from what I understand. I believe Ian Gregg is going to be there. He is the inventor of the Ricardian contracts that Thomas was talking about earlier today, and that was back in the 90s that he created those. So if you are near Hong Kong, or if you'd like to go to probably one of the biggest EOS meetups in the last couple months, I would say you should definitely go check that out. EOS Atlanta is coming up as well. They have been talking about their date, and I don't know entirely if it's been set yet. Do you have any more info on that, Bluejays?
I believe it is coming up very soon. I will check again. I also believe it might be in April, so around that time. We will confirm that. And I believe Andrew M. on Telegram would be the best one to ask about that. And we will paste the...
I just found it. I should say I found the date when you were mentioning that, because I pulled up the meetup, and we are going to post this link too. It's April 5th. Thursday, April 5th. Yep. And you were right about Andrew M. He is the one hosting it, setting it all up. And guess who's speaking at that meetup? Mr. Thomas Cox will be there. And he, like he said about the New York meetup, which I was at, and it was really fun. So he gives a great talk, and then he also takes a lot of great questions and answers from the community, everyone who shows up. Furthermore, usually there's an after party. You head over to the bar, and you can chit chat with EOS fans and with Thomas directly. He did that in New York, and I would suspect he probably would do it again in Atlanta, assuming that everybody does decide to go out and that everybody's enthusiastic enough about it, which can't imagine why not, right?
Right, not. What is that? You said it's the 5th, right?
Thursday, April 5th.
Thursday,
Yeah.
April 5th. Okay, great. It looks like we also have a Swedish meetup coming very soon, and we will get more details about that. It's coming in April. Um, Eric from EOSIO.se is planning that, and we will have more info on that.
Yeah, and I believe that name may actually change. Eric, of course, is running as a block producer as well. EOSIO.se is the current name, and that may change. But he is involved now with the Swedish Meetup crew, and they've hinted at it. They don't have exact dates set or actual folks who will be attending. But if you are near Sweden, you should keep your ears open. And of course, we will provide information when we have it. It'll be on our forums in the Meetup section. And speaking of those forums, if you have a meetup and you'd like it announced or talked about, or even if you'd like to pre-record a hello and an introduction to your meetup, please let us know on the forums posted on there, or you can email us admin@eosgo.io. That's admin@eosgo.io, or you can always private message us on Telegram. And then the last one, of course, Mr. Sheldon out there in Shenzhen, I believe we have a video.
Yeah, we have a video. Let's kick this one off.
Hi, EOS community from Sheldon. I'm here to introduce the EOS Shenzhen to our community. Shenzhen is a city located in the southern China, just beside Hong Kong. It's known for its innovation, technology, and also entrepreneurship. Our team is located in Shenzhen, has both technology and financial backgrounds. And so far, we have tested our ability to provide a reliable node service in our community testnet. And also we're planning for the future challenge, including planning to set the primary and secondary and tertiary nodes located in different internet data center. Secondly, we have already planned our meetup section offline in Shenzhen on the 24th of March. You can see on the EOS Go website. And so far, it already have 40 people, more than 40 people sign up for the meetup session. We believe it will be very exciting and very amazing meetup. We believe that we have the competence and we have the determination to provide a high quality service for all the stakeholders in the region of Southern China. Thank you. Thirdly, we are running a public channel called EOS Tech Lover in Chinese, which provides a high quality article translation and also demonstration video making to provide a high quality technology education for the Chinese audience. So together with all the blog producers we are prepared, and also the meetup we are running, also lastly the public channel we are running, we believe that we have the competence and we have the determination to provide a high quality service for all the stakeholders in the region of Southern China. Thank you.
What an excellent meetup announcement.
We have to thank Sheldon, of course, for recording that for us. He is Shenzhen, China. He's telling us is there a lot of expats there. It's becoming sort of a technological hub, and it's an important city in China for something like blockchain, and they're trying to lead the way. March 24th, as he said, will be the date. If you're near Shenzhen, you should definitely say hello. He's actually asking that we pre-record a hello for him as well to play at the meetup. So we'll have to do that here shortly after the show. Of course, Sheldon, we thank you again for coming on and providing a hello.
Thank you, Sheldon. Kevin, any thoughts of the week here?
Well, so Dan has been very active in Telegram lately. He said a couple of things that were interesting. I know the Bitcoin, you brought it up as well about Bitcoin. He mentioned bringing Bitcoin over to EOS, which I believe is sort of an exaggeration. It's not an exaggeration, but basically you're not actually bringing Bitcoin onto it. You can create a Bitcoin-like token that can be transferred back and forth with a two-way peg. Of course, the Bitcoin network has limitations, as Dan was saying, and so therefore it could be very slow to go back and forth, and it could also be expensive depending on how clogged up Bitcoin actually is. It sounds like they are sort of honing in now. You heard Thomas talk about how they are trying to release Dawn 3.0. It should be coming up soon. The Constitution is coming out. Basically, it's crunch time, I think, for them. It sounds like they are not getting much sleep. They're working hard. And we see Dan on Telegram at all hours of the day answering questions. obviously we can't thank him enough for coming on and engaging with the community like he does.
Yeah, it does. It does seem with his activity that they probably have maybe he finished a grid module and he finished off a section of code and he's just kind of, okay, guys, hand it over to the testers and let me go in Telegram and answer a whole bunch of questions.
Yeah, and I heard someone put it one time. They're like, I think Dan he goes through a really hard, when you're coding, of course, it's very intense and it requires a lot of mental energy. You go on Telegram, you have a bunch of enthusiastic folks who want to talk about EOS. It's kind of fun. It's a good way to let off steam and relax a little bit. So I can just sort of imagine him there holding the dew in his hands, drinking that, and just enjoying talking to the folks about EOS.
Answering a couple of when moon questions, kick back.
Well, he does, like, if you bring up price with him, he is an admin in the EOS general chat, which has almost 40,000 members now in that chat, and he will say, take the price chat somewhere else, please. This is not the right place for it. He wants to answer technological questions. And also the other day, it was funny. This was in the Telegram summary, but basically he talked about the light clients and inter-blockchain communication.
Yes.
And meanwhile, all the token holders were saying, or all the EOS community folks were saying, thank you, Dan, you're Superman, you're great. And he just kept on talking about light clients and inter-blockchain communication. He's very much about, he loves this technology. He loves working on EOS and explaining it and teaching it. And that's what we learned when we went up there and met him and shot those videos. So if you bring up When Moon with Dan, you may not get an answer from him.
He won't answer you. But you do bring up IBC, though, inter-blockchain communication. I did post something on our forums, a little snippet of conversation there. I think it's going to be one of those under the radar. It's just one of those things that could be really big. It could be as big as governance, a type of feature like that. And you alluded to the Bitcoin thing. I think he was trying to basically say, this is a use case. This is what we could do if we wanted to. And IBC, man, let's
Well, he described it, and like you posted rather on the forums, the IBC, inter-blockchain communication, is the answer to infinite scalability. Right? You can get up to tens of thousands with single-threaded. You can get up to possibly hundreds of thousands with multi-threaded. It's going to be inter-blockchain communication where you have multiple EOS blockchains, just like you have multiple cities in the world. And just because you're in one city doesn't mean you cannot communicate or do commerce with another city. It just means that you have to go through some form of communication to make it happen. And that is one way to think about all the different EOS chains and how they'll be connected through EOS.
And you said it rightly so, chains. So you can definitely see what is coming here. They're going to release the software, and who knows out in the wild how many chains are going to be created. And then you're going to have this mechanism to talk to each one of them. So Kevin, I don't know if we should have Kevin chain and Johan chain, but or Bluejays chain, and then that's something that we might have to think about.
Right. I guess we'll start taking applications for block producers for the Kevin and Bluejays chains. Just kidding. We're not actually doing that.
Yeah, we're not doing that. Yeah. But it's totally feasible, right? So.
Oh yeah, definitely. Anyone can take that software that they're creating, and you said it earlier. This is a rocket ship, and they're basically handing everyone the keys. It's open source software. They are a software company only, and so if you wanted to take that software and launch the Johan chain, you could even do all 21 block producer slots yourself. Or I believe the software is also modifiable to where you can actually just do, 7 block producer? I don't know what the minimum is, but you can choose how many block producer candidates you actually want on your chain.
It's configurable. So they started off at having 21 hard coded, and now it's configurable. So that is also another interesting part of the software.
Right. And I'm sure we'll see a lot of private blockchains from companies. Maybe there will be a bank blockchain where they work together just to transfer funds back and forth. This is all speculation. I don't know for sure, but those private chains would also be able to communicate with the public chain, the main EOS chain, and all the other ones that have been developed as well. And of course, we can see the Dan message bot is starting to kick up. He is clearly about to fire up another Q&A, probably because Dan is watching right now. Hello, Dan. Yeah.
Hey, Dan.
Oh, probably not. Yeah, but we always appreciate Dan. And of course, thank you again for having us up there and allowing us to ask you questions and recording those resource allocation video, and also the DPoS/BFT Byzantine fault tolerance videos as well. They were very helpful for the community. So thanks again. And what are your thoughts there, Bluejays? Thoughts of the week?
I saw some those interesting news articles are on my mind, and I think I'm seeing a positive shift and a viewpoint. There was also some general wording in some articles out there about. I will find the source, but what I'm seeing is a general shift in sentiment in a more positive direction. Obviously, given that many of these major issues are taken care of, like we just need to have a lot of transparency and different mechanisms to clear and making sure that a transaction is not basically used for the wrong purposes. And I think that's what the main things are.
Right. And of course, we use that term, the radical transparency, the one that Dan first coined in his article back, I believe it was December. And basically, it refers to blockchain being completely open, how anyone can inspect the transactions that are taking place. They can see what is going on. And that way, people are sort of incentivized, or they're most interested in performing the right way, or acting the right way, I should say. So they are, they're easily caught, basically, if they're doing something they should not be doing. Exactly. So we should begin wrapping this up, Blue Jays. It's been a long show, and we appreciate everybody who stuck around. We're going to have Thomas Cox back again next week. Who else is coming up, Blue Jays?
I believe we have EOS New York on the next show. We also have a confirmed guest of Jan Lager, who that's the name he goes by on Telegram, and he will be talking about EOS Index. We also have another guest who may be confirming as well, so we can talk about that as it gets closer. But if you do have any sort of desire to come on the show, feel free. I mean, we are, as you can see, sort of laid back in our style here, and we'll definitely talk EOS with you. And it's good to also put your project out there, because I think that's going to do well for you to publicize it.
Yeah, and we're here to just, obviously, our goal is EOS Go. We are not running for Block Producer. We get that question sometimes. That we are just an independent, neutral source for helping EOS get strong, empower EOS, basically, become stronger. A blockchain is only as strong as its community. And that is our primary goal, is to help grow that community, to educate and inform, and also perform outreach, and also to help dApp companies grow their communities as well. We're starting to work on a program to help dApp companies who are building on EOS with their communities. So we're trying to sort of figure out the best way for us to move forward so that we can help EOS as much as possible. That is our primary goal. The Block Producer report is coming out again Wednesday. We always will help report on block producers so the community can stay up to date as to what's going on there. I should also say that EOS Go, the website, is coming up. We have forums. We've had those for a while. EOS Go website will be a place where anyone can go and learn about it, learn about EOS, I should say. They can connect with others on the community forums. They can also educate. They can start someone off with the EOS Go website. If they're looking to help someone else understand what EOS is and why it is important and what it will do for the world, the EOS Go website will be the place to go. It will be eosgo.io, eosgo.io. Right now, that address forwards you over to our forums, which have been up for 3 or 4 months. But that website will go live later this week. We will talk about that. We will send out the message when it is up, and you can check it out. And we are always open to feedback. We'd like to know what you want to see, what could be better, and what you think. And that same goes for this show. If it's good, constructive feedback, we would love to hear it. And, of course, we are always looking to get better. So let us know.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And hit subscribe on this YouTube channel. Join the Community Updates Telegram channel. And we have a Facebook and Twitter as well. So thank you for tuning in today. Kevin, anything else before we say goodbye and turn off?
I had the same message. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. We will see you next week for episode 5, and go EOS.
Go EOS.